There were rough men that were settling this country. There were so many things that could kill you when you lived here, and it took a special kind of person. It's men living in an area, working out on these ranches. There's no female influence to have them calm down and see, you know, a different side of things. I'm not sure what it is, but there were so many things that happened, so many murders. I really don't understand. You know, a small town that has a high murder rate, I really can't explain it. My name is Joan L. Brantley, and I am on the board of directors for the Copper Cities Community Players, and that's a theater group that's been active here in Globe for more than 40 years, or almost 40 years that I've actually been involved with it. I was born here, but I left to go to the big city to pursue my education, and I couldn't stay away. I had to come back. And I love living here.
Please, is this way?
Two of the walking tours that we do now that are very, very popular, one of us is our cemetery tour, and the other one is Ghosts of Globe. And they're very different tours. In the cemetery tour, we honor the people that lived here, worked here, you know, had children together and died here, and we honor them and we honor their stories.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Somebody up there could pull me up, but it wasn't to be. As I reached the current, it picked up, and my little cot was slammed into a wooden piling, and that was the end of my voyage and my life.
I thought that would be my salvation. I thought, Charlie, you just might make it. About that time, it slipped out from under my arms, and I bobbed in the cold water. The citizens, I could see on the train track, was watching. Maybe they could help. About that time, I went under. That was the last time anybody ever saw me alive.
I've had a good life. 81 years, in fact. I can't complain. It's been good. Until that day in August, in which the summer storm decided to take me away from the God's green earth.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
There's some interesting things here, and I've heard stories dating back to my grandmother when she was here in the early 1900s. And she would have terrible nightmares. Sometimes she would be at my house and she would doze off, as 90-year-old people do, and just wake up, you know, with terror, screaming and crying. And I tried to comfort her and ask her, you know, Grandma, what is it? What's wrong? And finally, she told me a story of when she was a young woman, and she had worked in a candy store in the basement of one of these buildings. You know, I can show you the building where this happened. We just walked down here. It was right down the block, at the end of the block, and of course it's been changed now. She worked in the candy store that was right across the street. And she had a young admirer, she said, who would wait for her every evening when she got off work because he wanted to walk her home. And so one evening, he said he wanted to walk her home and he had something exciting to show her. So come with me. And he took her across the street, and he had the keys to the building, and he took her into the basement of the building, the lower floor. And this was during the Spanish flu, and a lot of people were sick here and dying. And so they went into the building, and she was horrified because there were bodies that were hanging from hooks. And you have to understand that you take the position of the mortician, I've got so many people, what am I going to do with them? You know, I don't want to stack them on the floor. And so she was horrified. And he pushed her in, turned off the light, and closed the door. So she was screaming, ah! And those were the same screams that I would hear when she would doze off or fall asleep. We have so many people that live here that really, really embrace the paranormal idea. And they've had things happen to them. Maybe they didn't start out believing in that, but they're here for a while and now they do. And we have such a rich history, and sometimes you wonder, how can these two things, this is where this happened, how can on separate occasions someone describe that same thing, a paranormal investigator? How does that happen? So yes, people do think about it. I know that one of our biggest stories that we tell is at the jail, and the reason that we researched the story was because a paranormal investigator talked about hearing little girls in the jail. We did the research, looked at the history, and we found the story of Kingsley Olds. And what happened is he was working on one of the ranches and took the two little girls for a trip, and with the parents' permission, and they were murdered. And he was found with a bullet shot, his jaw was blown off, and he said that someone had come and drowned the little girls, and he didn't know who it was. Well, he was arrested for that murder, and he was in jail recovering from his gunshot wound, and the nurse testified that he was constantly screaming and talking to the little girls who'd come to visit him in the cell. Later, he was murdered by an unknown assailant who shot him from the Gila County Courthouse, who somehow was there all night smoking cigars and waiting until the dawn when he made a shot across an alley and killed him. No one ever knew who it was. There was someone at the bar at 4 o'clock in the morning across the street that said they saw a man leave the building at 4 o'clock in the morning.